All right, so let's first have a look at how the academic writing task 1 is written. So a quick recap of the formula. By now you guys should have this memorized. So we start off with an introduction, which is a paraphrase of the prompt that you get with the task. You're then going to write a general overview. This is where you select and report the main features or trends without mentioning statistics. Then you write your detailed description where you compare the data and add statistics. And then finally, you end with a summary of the main trends again. Okay, so we've gone through a lot in the past webinars on the formula, okay, and the structure of writing task 1. So today we're going to look in particular at some of the criteria for how it's graded. So you're graded on 4 things. The first one is task achievement. The second one is coherence and cohesion. The third is vocabulary, and the fourth is grammar. So let's have a look in detail at what each of these are. Task achievement. It means you meet the word count. You've written 150 words or over. That you have selected the appropriate information. Okay, that you have not just picked random trends or random data, that you've selected information that is appropriate, meaning the most noticeable or the most important, and that you've discussed main trends and compared them, so that you've achieved the requirements of the task. Next, the next criteria is coherence and cohesion. This means that you have logically sequenced your ideas, meaning that all of your ideas relate to one another. This is on an overall scale, meaning that the formula has been applied paragraph by paragraph, but also within your paragraphs, that your ideas are connected, that they make sense, and that you have used cohesive devices, meaning things like linking words. On the other hand, conversely, things like that. Vocabulary is the third criteria. This relates to word forms. Have you used the correct word forms? For example, the adjective, not the adverb, or the noun form and not the adjective form. Okay, that you've used words in the correct way and that you've made correct word choices. So the choices of words that you've made have been correct and appropriate. Uses less common vocabulary. Okay, this is interesting vocabulary, things that show that your vocabulary is a little bit more sophisticated. Also under vocabulary is spelling, so that you use correct spelling. The fourth criteria that you're graded on is grammar. They want to see that you can use a variety of sentence structures, for example, active and passive sentences, different forms of sentence structure, that your sentence structures are correct, that you use punctuation, so full stops where you need to use full stops and commas where you need to use commas, and that you have written mostly error-free sentences, meaning not making mistakes with prepositions or subject-verb agreement or verb tenses. All of this comes under grammar. So today we're going to be looking at some common mistakes that people make in grammar for writing task 1. The first thing we're going to look at is nouns. Noun or nouns, meaning plural or singular. So if it's one noun, it doesn't take S. If it's more than one noun, usually we add an S. One mistake that many of us make in our writing is we forget to write S at the end of our plural noun. So let's look at an example of singular versus plural. Some people prefer to eat at home. So people here is plural. We don't say persons, we say people. So this is an irregular plural noun. It doesn't take S. Others prefer to eat at restaurants. So others, other people. It's plural, we have to take S. And restaurants, well, restaurants in general, And because it's a general noun, we make it plural, we add an S. So your first task is to identify the nouns in this writing task 1. I'll give you a few moments. Okay, let's have a look at the nouns. There are lots. So nouns form a large part of the English language. Here they are. There are 25 of them altogether. Now, there are some mistakes in plural and singular nouns. So the next thing I'd like you to do is spot the mistakes. There are 7. Some nouns have an S when they shouldn't, and some nouns don't have an S when they should. So which ones are they? All right, let's check our answers. Okay, so information, and most of you got this right, should not have S. Information is a non-countable noun. Restaurant's meal should say restaurant meals. Time periods should be time period. And fast food meal should be fast food meals. Okay, so these were our mistakes. Why? Informations, restaurants meals, and fast food meals. As I said, information is not countable. We can't count it, so it never takes S. We can only add S to nouns that are countable. For example, 1 egg, 2 eggs. We can't say 1 information, 2 informations, because it's not countable. Restaurant's meal. The main noun here is meals. Restaurants act as an adjective. So meals, what kind of meals? Restaurant meals. The adjective never takes S, only the noun. So in this case, the S goes on meals. Fast food meals. There are many fast food meals. Okay, it's not just talking about one fast food meal has become popular. Not just one meal, but many. The same thing with time period. Time period, it's only one time period. So the whole entire graph was over one period from, let's just say, 1970 to 2000. That period is only one time period. It's not looking at more than one. There's no comparison between, for example, 1910 to 1950 and then 1950 to 1980. That would be 2 time periods. Okay, so they were the biggest mistakes that people make with nouns. Adding an S where there shouldn't be, but most of the time it's forgetting to put the S on the plural noun. The other big mistake that we tend to make is articles, using articles incorrectly. So articles are a, and, the, or no article. An is the same as a, but we put it before a word that starts with a vowel. And what's a vowel? There are 5, A, E, I, O, U. Okay, so these are the same, it just depends on which word comes after it. So for example, a restaurant. A restaurant just means any particular any restaurant, no restaurant in particular. An increase. Okay, we haven't defined the increase, and we've used an because it's followed by a vowel. The graph, meaning specific, a particular graph. The charts, so we can use the with plural, again, to talk about specific charts. Money. Here I haven't used an article. I've omitted an article because I'm talking about money in general. We can also put an article before an adjective. So a restaurant becomes a nice restaurant. An incremental increase. The line graph, the pie charts, paper money. So it's usually article plus noun or article plus adjective plus noun. So identify the articles plus noun in this task response. And there's only one. Okay, so the article noun is an increase. Is this correct? Should it be an increase? So there are a couple of mistakes in this sentence. The prepositions are also wrong, but we're going to get to prepositions in a moment. Let's look at this. An increase in money spent in fast food is significant. Is "an" the correct article to use there? Okay, no, it's not. An is the incorrect article. Why? Why can't we use "an increase"? Well, in this particular sentence, it's incorrect because "an" is used for undefined or unspecific nouns. Money in this sentence is defined. Which money? The money spent on fast food. Therefore, money takes the. We only use "a" or "an" for nouns that are undefined. Also, Also, someone just asked, why can't we say money? Because money is an uncountable noun. Even though we can count actual money, $1, $2, 10 cents, the noun itself is uncountable. I can't say money, 5 monies, 10 monies. So money can only either take no article or a definite article because we only use for nouns that are countable. Okay, I would like for you to identify the article plus the adjective noun, and there's only one. Oops. Okay, the definite article and adjective noun is the time period. So here the time period is the noun. What kind of period? The time period. And yes, the increase in money, the increase, this would be adjective noun. Here we have, article noun, and here we have article adjective noun. Okay, now I'd like you to identify the nouns that need an article. So sometimes we forget to put an article. So I have forgotten to put a few articles in my response. So I'd like you to find the nouns that you think need an article. Okay, just to help you out, here are the nouns that are missing an article. We've got data, number, percentage, number, and money. So you need to read those sentences carefully and ask yourself, which article do they need? The, a, or an? All right. So the answers were, oops. Actually, we'll get to the answers in a moment. Wait, here they are. The data, the number, the percentage, the number, and the money. Why? Well, let's have a look at the rules. Hang on one second. Let me go back. Okay, so here are the general rules to live by that guide your use of articles. So we don't use an article with general statements that use plural countable nouns or singular uncountable nouns. Let's look at an example. Fast food restaurants are known for their quick service. So I haven't said the fast food restaurants. Why not? Because it's a general statement. I'm not talking about any particular fast food restaurants, just fast food restaurants in general. With plural countable nouns. So restaurants is plural. I can't say fast food restaurant is known for its quick service, okay, because I can only use it with countable plural nouns. Or singular uncountable. For example, service. This kind of service is uncountable. We can say that the company offers many services, but we can't say the restaurant has good service. Okay, it's a different meaning, and in that case, it is uncountable, singular. We use a or an with non-specific countable nouns. I went to a fast food restaurant last week. Okay, it's non-specific. I haven't told you which one, so I've said a. But remember, a is only ever in singular. We can't say restaurants, for example. The is used with specific countable and uncountable nouns. For example, the restaurant was extremely busy and the staff were overwhelmed. I could also say the restaurants were extremely busy. Now, which restaurants? Why have I used the? Because I'm talking about the restaurant that I went to last week. It becomes specific because I've already previously mentioned it. So the second or third or fourth time I mention it, you know which one I'm talking about now. I'm talking about the restaurant that I went to last week. So that's why the second time I can use the definite article. Okay. And here we did. So somebody had a question about why can't we put the money? Why can't we put the before money in the introduction paragraph? Because it's talking about money in general, about money spent or about the money spent on eating out. By who? If we had specified who spent the money, so the money spent by diners or the money spent by people or the money spent by customers, but we haven't specified who spent the money. So that's why we don't mention the definite article. Okay, let's move on now to another mistake common mistake is prepositions. These are words like in, on, at, from, to, and by. Small words, but big confusion. So, task. Firstly, identify the prepositions. How many are there? Okay, let's have a look. So we have in, on, at, from, by, to, so quite a few there. Okay, I'm going to go through the rules for prepositions, but these rules are not in relation to everything to do with prepositions. They're only to do with how we use prepositions for writing task 1, okay? Very specific to this particular task. So in, we say in a year, so in 2000. In a place, so in a restaurant. On, you spend money on food, you spend money on something. At, so although home is a place, like in a restaurant, we don't say in home, okay? We always say at home. At and home always go together. We also say at 20%. This means the start point or the end point. So the percentage started at 20% and finished at 20%. From 10%. 10% would be the lowest point. So the data increased from 10% to 15%. So 2 would be the higher point. And then we have by. By is the difference between the two. So it increased by 5%, okay? Because the difference between 10 and 15 is 5. Okay, so now that we have an idea about how we use these prepositions, let's go back and make some corrections. There are 8 preposition mistakes, and I've highlighted them in red. Okay, so the red prepositions are incorrect. You need to fix them. Okay, let's check our answers. Okay, so eating at home, because at home is always at home, never in home or on home. Here it's on, because significantly the percentage of money spent on restaurant meals, so the money, you always spend money on something. I like to spend money on shoes, for example, okay? Again, the money spent on fast food. Here we have at, because home cooking started at 90% in 1970. Remember, at we use for starting point, okay, or ending point. And then in is always for a year. And then here, to, fast food meals became more popular, rising steadily from 20% in 1970 to almost 30% in 1980. So if from is the low point, then to is the high point. So from and to always go together when we're comparing data. So it increased from to, or it decreased from 30 to 10. Here we have increasing money on eating out, spending money again on, and spending money on. Okay, next common mistake is verbs. So we're slowly making this, this writing task better. We've corrected the noun mistakes, we've corrected the article mistakes, and we've corrected the preposition mistakes. Now we want to correct the verb mistakes. So, firstly, identify the verbs. All right, let's have a look. Here are our verbs. Now, there are some mistakes with some of these verbs. So, let's correct these mistakes. I've just highlighted the ones that are incorrect. Okay, here are our answers. Gives, increased, rose, spent, became, and was spent. So as you notice, we put number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 into simple past. Why? Because all of this data, all of this money was spent in the past. The last year was the year 2000. So this has already happened. So the money or the amount of money rose in the past. People spent when? In the past, in 2000. Food became more popular when? In 2000. Okay, most of the money was spent when? In 2000. So we're talking about things that happened in the past. So generally, most of the verbs in writing task 1 are going to be in simple past. Money was spent. Why? We use was for plural or singular nouns. So I was, he was, she was, it was. This is singular. And what did we say before about money? It's singular. This is confusing because we think of money as something we can count, yeah? But the noun itself is non-countable. Have you ever said monies? I have a lot of monies. No, so we can't say that. So good question. We say money was, not money were, because money is singular. So yeah, well done. Now, we said gives in present tense, so everything else was in past, but we said gives in present tense because we're saying what the data is doing. The data provided, or the graph shown, or the table given tells us about or gives us information, because that's in present tense. That's what it's doing right now. The table itself exists in the present, but what it's describing exists in the past. So we always say the data tells us, or the data gives us, the data explains, the data reveals. Okay, so the verb related to the data is in present, but pretty much everything else is going to be in past. So what have we fixed? We fixed the mistakes in nouns, we fixed the articles, the prepositions, and the verbs. So I'm going to show you the original. We're going to compare my original writing task 1 to the edited writing task 1 with all of the mistakes fixed. So here's the original. Now, there's one more mistake. This one here. The number of sit-down meals also increased, but more steady. What's the mistake here? This is what we call a word form mistake. That's more of a vocabulary mistake rather than grammar. So steady is an adjective, but it should be an adverb because it's describing the verb. So yes, it should be steadily. All right, so this was the first attempt. As you can see, I've used the structure. I've used the structure quite well. There's logical progression of ideas, but really the main mistakes here, or all of the mistakes here, are grammar related. And you can see that it takes away from the fluency of the writing. So let's look at the edited version. Okay, so you can see the difference that grammar makes. Although the structure is the same, the information is the same, those few grammar mistakes in nouns, articles, prepositions, and verbs definitely changed the way that you read that task. It sounded less native and it just sounded off. Okay, so grammar can make a big difference, and it's one of the 4 criteria that they're going to use to grade you. So you want to really take care with these common mistakes. Okay, any questions?